We are going to get started with the Torah portion. This Torah portion is number 19, Teruma, which is heave offering. But we will enter in some prayer and get started. So, Heavenly Father, we thank you for your commandment to study your Torah. Yahweh, we ask that as we dive into this portion, that you would just open our eyes through your Spirit. May we see the deeper meanings, and Yahweh, we ask that we would just bless you today with the reading of your Torah. I ask this all in Yeshua's name. Amen. So we will be reading from 25:1 through 27:19. If I could get a reader, Lance, to go through from 25:1. How far would you like to read? Because could you read through verse 22, please?
This is Exodus 25, right?
Yes, 25:1. Okay.
The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to bring me an offering. You are to receive the offering for me from everyone whose heart prompts them to give. These are the offerings you are to receive from them: gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and fine linen, goat hair, ram's skins dyed red, and another type of durable leather, acacia wood, olive oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil, and for the fragrant incense, and onyx stones and other gems to be mounted on the ephod and breastpiece. Then have them make a sanctuary for me, and I will dwell among them. Make this tabernacle and all its furnishings exactly like the pattern I will show you. Have them make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. Overlay it with pure gold, both inside and out, and make a gold molding around it. Cast 4 gold rings for it and fasten them to its 4 feet, with 2 rings on one side and 2 rings on the other. Then make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. Insert the poles into the rings and on the sides of the ark to carry it. The poles are to remain in the rings of this ark. They are not to be removed. Then put in the ark the tablets of the covenant Torah, which I will give you. Make an atonement cover of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide, and make 2 cherubim out of hammered gold at the ends of the cover. Make 1 cherub on one end and the second cherub on the other. Make the cherubim of one piece with the cover at the 2 ends. The cherubim are to have their wings spread upward, overshadowing the cover with them. The cherubim are to face each other, looking toward the cover. Place the cover on top of the ark and put in the ark the tablets of the covenant Torah that I will give you. There, above the cover, between the 2 cherubim that are over the ark of the covenant Torah, I will meet with you and give you all my commandments for the Israelites."
All right, we can open this up for discussion. I will see if anybody has any comments before I give 1 or 2 of my own. So I guess raise your hand if you have any comment on the Ark of the Covenant. I got 2 or 3. So Dean, Mike, maybe another one.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really like the aspect of the willing heart. Like when he says to those who, well, my version says, who gives it willingly with his heart, you shall take my offering. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of a picture of how we operate or should operate in the body today. Not to be forced to do something, but to give out of our heart. And then I was reading some commentary, some midrash on the plural when he says, and they shall make an ark of acacia wood, and then it goes into a singular for Moses, and then you shall do. All people come together to study the Torah is kind of what they were saying. And I should have wrote it down, but I didn't. And when it uses the plural for making the ark itself, and then moves off into the singular, speaking of Moses, the plural aspect is for all of us to come together in Torah, to study his commandments, to do these things as one body. And then the singular aspect, obviously, is for Moses and his commandments on the people and how to govern and all of those things. Now, I'm not saying one man should govern. That's not what I'm saying. But in their commentary, that's kind of what they were saying. That's all I got.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in verse 8, it basically just gives the foundation for why Yahweh wanted Moses to build a sanctuary, because Yahweh lost connection with man when he sinned in the garden, and his desire is to rekindle that relationship. And so he said, "Let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them." And of course, he said, "I will show you, do it according to the pattern that I will show you in the heavens." And so, so when we think of this tabernacle, it gives us also a foreshadow of why in the millennial kingdom it talks about how the Levites will begin to operate in the temple again. Mm-hmm. And it's for this very reason that the Father cannot dwell among sinful men. And if you remember when he came down on Mount, I keep wanting to say Zion, but pardon? No, Sinai. That the people could only go up to the edge, and anything that touched the mount would die. And then he invited Moses, Abihu, Nadab, and I think Aaron, and then the 70 others to come up. But only Moses could approach him, anywhere close. But so it just gives us this concept of how holy of a God he is, and for man in our sinful state, what it takes to be able to come in his presence again. And so the tabernacle provided that way of at least coming into his presence, at least getting close to him again. The temple then, when the sanctuary was replaced with the temple, it was the same thing. It was for that very reason, because Yahweh wants to dwell among his people, but there's, in the sinful world, there has to be borders for that until everything is made new. Mm-hmm. And so the case for the third temple lies in this very principle here during the millennial kingdom. Yeshua, we know, will reign. Yeshua, we know we can talk face to face. But the Father, he cannot until all things are made new, until death is destroyed and there's no more death, no more sin. At that point, at the end of the millennium, then Yahweh, the Father, can come down to earth and actually dwell among his people. But until then, that's why this the temple is important for this coming age, the millennial kingdom.
Yeah, no, we have a lot to unpack when we get to the end of this, because you're referring to the eighth day, where there'll be a new heavens and a new earth. But the 1,000-year reign is technically the seventh day, and there is still sin in the world, which is interesting because, like unpacking that, and I think it's Ezekiel, is it 14, where it says there'll be those who refuse to come up to Sukkot, and they will not get rain in their land. So there's still a dynamic there of potentially people who are not obeying or not who are still sinning in the world at that time. So we'll get into a lot of that. Any more comments on this section? Yes.
Okay, mine are not comments, mine's questions. So why do we have, instead of full measurements, why are there like quarters and halves and 3/4? It's just a question. And I forgot my other question. Oh, why does it say for them to take rather than to bring or offer? Why is it take an offering?
Fantastic question. The answer is lying next to you. It's Stevie. I'm sure has a comment on that. I don't have a comment on that, on as far as why they did half measurements or take instead of bring. I didn't get into those details. When I was preparing for this, I kind of, I'll get into it at the end in the summary of kind of the symbolic application and like spiritual application of these things.
Well, this is just a thought. So the bring was already kind of it gave the foundation for that. Willing hearts bring it, but the taking kind of implies to me that it has to be handled by a group of selected people, so it gets handled correctly. Because if the sacrifices and offerings were not handled correctly, it would create great harm and damage to the people. So that's one thought that comes to my mind. As far as the quarters and the halves, I don't have a good answer for that one.
So with the offering, obviously they willingly brought their offerings, just like Yeshua willingly laid his life down. Talks about that in John 10. Where he talks about how he will lay his life down. So that's an easy tie to this offering piece. It always comes back to Yeshua.
Yeah, and I believe it's not in this portion, but later, at some point, Moses has to tell them to stop bringing stuff because their heart was they just wanted to continue to contribute, and they had more than enough. Go ahead, Stevie.
Just a continuation, not that I really have an answer myself for the concept of take, because it's a different, we don't have, it's not a good English translation, all right? So I will read a brief excerpt, if you will, let me, from Rashi. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Rashi comments that the term, for me, indicates that people should contribute for the tabernacle purely for the sake of God's name, not from social pressure or in quest of honor, which goes with what comment was made earlier. Since the people were asked to contribute, why does the verse say take instead of give? Homiletically, by contributing to God's causes, a Jew truly takes for himself, for personal benefit of generosity is far greater than its cost. The true sense of the word has no English equivalent. It implies a separation of a portion of one's resources to be set aside for a higher purpose. The root of the word is to uplift. Thus, the effect of these contributions was to elevate the giver and his concept of the purpose of the wealth with which God had blessed him.
All right. I listened to something yesterday that was kind of going back to when Yeshua was commenting about the poor woman who gave her 2 cents at the temple versus the rich men giving their a large portion. He said, surely this woman has given more than the rich man. And so it's all about the heart. Yahweh can create, like he created, obviously he created everything. So, but gold and silver, if he needs it, he can just make it appear. He doesn't need your money. He wants your heart. There's a hand raised behind you.
Yeah, and I really love the concept of this whole section because, like we're talking about this giving heart piece, I mean, the amount of stuff that they took from Egypt. We really don't talk about that much, but they did plunder and they had all these things. And so it's a really amazing how these very poor, slaves come out of Egypt and they think, oh my goodness, I finally have all this stuff. But like, what am I going to do with it? And then all of a sudden he gives this beautiful picture of the tabernacle and they're finally like, oh, this is what I've been lugging around this stuff for. I mean, because can you imagine, you're like, oh, I have all these really good things, but you're walking and you're tired and they're thirsty and it's just a really beautiful dynamic of the fact that after they had gained so much what they thought were like earthly things, that God's like, but hey, this is what we're going to do with it. And so, like you said, at one point he's like, stop bringing me stuff. Like, we have enough. And so it really is this beautiful picture of like, nothing truly is ours. He really does give us everything. And so we can never outgive God. We can never outgive, what we've been given.
Yeah, what you just mentioned kind of made me think of sayings like, with more money comes more problems. And for the Israelites in that case, it was the wealth that they took. Like our fiat money, paper money is lightweight. Their money, their currency was very heavy. So if they came out very wealthy, they were lugging around a lot of weight as well. So just another aspect. Came burdensome for them as well. Not the reason why they gave so much. It was more of a heart posture, but just a lot of money can be burdensome or cause problems. Any other questions? Comments? Yes.
I know I keep going back to the millennial kingdom, but I think it's important because I think we're at the doorstep of that. Here's a good reference to put by from verse 25 and 8 and 9 is to write in 1 Kings 6, 11 through 13. And this is when Solomon built the temple to replace the tabernacle. And he says, and the word of Yahweh came to Solomon saying, concerning this house which you are in building, if you will walk in my statutes, execute my judgments, and keep all my commandments to walk in them, then I will perform the word with you, which I spoke to David my father, your father. And I will dwell among the children of Israel, and I will not forsake my people Israel. So we know in the millennial kingdom, he says that I will give them a new heart, and every man shall know me. And so at that point in time, again, Yahweh will desire to dwell among his people. Therefore, the third temple is going to be required to do that to fulfill this prophecy.
So
now, and some might ask, well, who's going to build that? Well, I think Yeshua is going to facilitate it, but I think, personally, this is just my opinion, he's going to use David to help facilitate building that third temple, but that's my opinion.
So you kind of touched on part of the new covenant that we are walking in. Obviously, it says every man will know me, but we are, like, Yeshua initiated the quote-unquote new covenant where he put his law in our hearts. Now, it is not global yet. Everybody has not bent the knee, but they will, and they will know him eventually. So I think that, like, it has, the covenant has been established, but it is not in the full realization of it yet, and that is to come. Because again, like, part of the new covenant is that a lion will lay down with a calf and a wolf with a lamb and in the field, and we are not at that point of peace yet. And this is to come. But any comments or questions before we start into the next section?
As far as the measurements went, it has to do with proportions. When you build something, you want it to be a certain length and width, and you want it to be proportional. It had to be that way in order to line up with creation, the way he made things. But you can't just take and say, it's a cubit and a half. It meant another word for a half of a cubit. Mm-hmm. So that's what it is. It has to do with proportions.
I do know Michael kind of stepped out. He might know this. Mike will probably know this, that in the construction realm, there is a way to measurements. I think it's like 1/5. I'll have to look this up because I didn't even think about it until you guys mentioned. But there is a certain way to make things so it's appeasing to the eye as well. And I can't remember what it's called. I kind of put myself on the spot here. But how you were describing the measurements and making it towards creation. Obviously, everything's made with a purpose, and everything is was when Yahweh got done creating, He said, "And it is good." Golden ratio. Tom knew.
It all has to do with balance and center of gravity and being able to carry the ark without it tipping over and making it difficult. It has to be a certain dimension.
Yep. So I never heard it referred to as a golden ratio, but that's a. Okay, there you go. All right, if I can get a reader, we are going to go from verse 23 through 40. So basically, in my Bible, it's the rest of chapter 25. If I could get a volunteer. Yep.
You shall make a table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long, and 1 cubit wide, and 1.5 cubits high. You shall overlay it with pure gold, and make a gold border around it. You shall make for it a rim of a handbreadth around it, and you shall make a gold border for the rim around it. You shall make 4 gold rings for it, and put rings on the 4 corners, which are on its 4 feet. The rings shall be close to the rim as holders for the poles to carry the table. You shall make the poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold, so that with them the table may be carried. You shall make its dishes and its pans and its jars and its bowls with which to pour drink offerings. You shall make them of pure gold. You shall set the bread of the presence on the table before me at all times. Then you shall make a lampstand of pure gold. The lampstand and its base and its shaft are to be made of hammered work. Its cups, its bulbs, and its flowers shall be of one piece with it. 6 branches shall go out from its sides, 3 branches of the lampstand from its one side, and 3 branches of the lampstand from its other side. 3 cups shall be shaped like almond blossoms in the one branch, a bulb and a flower, and 3 cups shaped like almond blossoms in the other branch, a bulb and a flower. So for 6 branches going out from the lampstand, and in the lampstand 4 cups shaped like almond blossoms, its bulbs and its flowers. A bulb shall be under the first pair of branches coming out of it, and a bulb under the second pair of branches coming out of it, and a bulb under the third pair of branches coming out of it. For the 6 branches coming out of the lampstand, their bulbs and their branches shall be of one piece with it. All of it shall be one piece of hammered work of pure gold. Then you shall make its lamps 7 in number, and they shall mount its lamps so as to shed light on the space in front of it. Its snuffers and their trays shall be of pure gold. It shall be made from a talent of pure gold with all these utensils. See that you make them after the pattern for them, which was shown to you on the mountain.
I believe the lampstand, when you calculate this, it's about 75 pounds of gold. And then I believe I've read somewhere that when the priest filled the lampstand with oil, they would have to use a step stool. So it was big. And it's kind of, I just wanted to point that out because obviously we can read that, but I'm a visual person, and all of our menorahs that we have, I don't think it's up here anymore, but they're all small. And I feel like it does an injustice to not, it just gives a image in our mind of the lampstand that was in the tent of meeting wasn't big, but this thing was massive. Does anybody have any comments on these? Yes, we already have several. We got Stevie and Mike and Dean.
So we know in the Bible when Yahweh repeats himself, it's for a reason. In verse 20 or 25:9, it mentioned that the pattern of the tabernacle was to be made according to the pattern that Yahweh gave it. So according to all that I show you after the pattern, you shall make it. Well, that's repeated in the last verse of the chapter that we just read, verse 40, after their pattern, which was showed thee in the mount. And then in the next chapter we're going to read in verse 30, according to the fashion thereof, which was showed you in the mount. And then in chapter 27, verse 8, and it was, hallowed with board shall you make it, as it was showed you in the mount, so shall you make it. So 4 times in this Torah portion, it's mentioned that the tabernacle was supposed to be made according to the pattern that was shown Moses in the mount. Just an interesting fact.
I think it was about a year and a half ago, Joanne and I and our oldest daughter and her family were in Rome and were able to see the victory arch of Titus, who had destroyed the temple, the country, taking many thousands, at least 50,000 Jews back to Rome as slaves and which ended up being used to build the Colosseum. But we saw this arch that was used to commemorate the victory and of the procession through Rome and there was an image of the menorah, which is huge. Just even the image itself there as they're carrying it. And in one sense, it's quite remarkable to see this. And in another, it's completely heartbreaking because we realize that this is a result of the destruction of the temple and the taking of all of these implements. I think you mentioned it was like the menorah and its utensils were like 66 pounds of pure gold. And it was heartbreaking for me to see this because it showed that all this beauty, all this majesty that was to honor and glorify the sanctuary of Jehovah had been desecrated. And here was actually being used as the wealth and the booty, that the Romans took was used actually to build that Colosseum, which was really massive. But it was a temple celebrating death and destruction, not life.
Dean?
Okay, yeah. You go, Kevin.
I was going to 2 things, if I may, to add to the menorah. The messianic link is, I had in my notes the messianic link, the beaten gold signifies sacrificing, producing light. Or suffering, sorry, not sacrificing, I read that wrong. Suffering, producing light, as in what Yeshua had done. And in the mountain, I had in my notes, the cloud becomes Shekinah, voices become the word of the mercy seat, the mountain fire becomes the altar fire, and the law moves to the heart of the sanctuary.
Yeah, I just want to say, thinking about all these vessels and all the offerings that the people brought out of a willing heart and all of these things, the bowls and the gold and all of that stuff, none of that stuff is holy in and of itself. It's only holy because of the proximity to the Holy of Holies, which is where God dwells above the atonement, above the Ark of the Covenant. And then when I think about what Paul says in 2 Timothy 2, if I could read that real quick, it says, "Nevertheless, the solid foundation of God stands, having this seal, the Lord knows those who are his. Let everyone who names the name of Christ depart from iniquity. But in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay, some for honor and some for dishonor. Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from the latter, he will be a vessel for honor, sanctified and useful for the master, prepared for every good work. Flee also useful lusts, but pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart." And I think that as we first come to the Messiah, we sometimes come as a wooden bowl, maybe used in the lavatory, right? But then as we become closer to him, we get hammered into something more holy. We get sanctified into something used for honor instead of what we used to be used for. And I think now, obviously there's a lot that goes into all of this stuff, but that pure heart, that willingness to approach him and come to the Messiah, we then start being hammered into something beautiful and golden and worth something. It's not the gold upon the altar that's holy, it's the altar itself, right? It's the presence of Yehovah that makes these things holy. So I don't know, that just kept popping in my head.
Thank you. Tom had a comment?
Okay, so we talk about gold, and you were talking about the weight of the lampstand, and there's got to be some other equation or something in here, or meaning. Because what's odd and what we've all grown up with is seeing bars of gold, right? And bank robbers stealing gold and putting gold in their backpack and running away kind of thing. But 1 cubic foot of gold, a cubic foot, weighs 1,206 pounds. If you put it there, we couldn't move it. If you set it in front of the stand there, because you could barely grab it, right? So it would take 4 men to lift it. And the lampstand, this huge lampstand, is made from a talent. Is that what you're saying? 75 pounds. And 75 pounds of gold is only a block, a 5-inch block. Incredibly small amount of gold. So there's just more to that story, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was hollow.
I get it, but it's gold, right? So there's some additional context that is in here somewhere, right? It's hollow, for sure, but that's not much material, right? It seems like it'd be fragile at that point.
I was going to
So,
mention
and I've
that.
never thought about it before till now when you said that, and thinking, well, it's only 75 pounds, but it's that big, right?
Yeah.
So that, I guess, just making that comment. Don't have any
That's an
answers
interesting
at all.
thought to go down, and like it. We'll get into kind of the symbolism of the golden lampstand and all of that, but the fact that it potentially could be fragile and needed to be treated properly so it did not break will be interesting to dive into. Go ahead, Mark.
One quick comment on the archetypus Stevie was talking about. I saw an interview with a former Islamic man. He said when he saw that, the Lord used it as one aspect to help him turn to Messiah, because he realized, oh my goodness, there was truly a temple in Jerusalem.
Would I be able to get a reader? I know, I seen that almost. Can I get a reader? I would like to have somebody read the entire chapter 26, because this is going to go through the tabernacle and the construction of it. Go ahead.
Moreover, you shall make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine woven linen, and blue, purple, and scarlet thread. With artistic design of a cherubim, you shall weave them. The length of each curtain shall be 28 cubits, and the width of each curtain 4 cubits. And every one of the curtains shall have the same measurements. 5 curtains shall be coupled to one another, and the other 5 curtains shall be coupled to one another. And you shall make loops of blue yarn on the edge of the curtain on the selvedge of one set. And likewise you shall do on the outer edge of the other curtain of the second set. 50 loops you shall make in the one curtain, and 50 loops you shall make on the edge of the curtain that is on the end of the second set, that the loops may be clasped to one another. And you shall make 50 clasps of gold, and couple the curtains together with the clasps, so that it may be one tabernacle. You shall also make curtains of goat's hair to be a tent over the tabernacle. You shall make 11 curtains. The length of each curtain shall be 30 cubits, and the width of each curtain 4 cubits. And the 11 curtains shall all have the same measurements. And you shall couple 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves. And you shall double over the 6th curtain at the forefront of the tent. You shall make 50 loops on the edge of a curtain that is outermost in one set, and 50 loops on the edge of the curtain of the second set. And you shall make 50 bronze clasps, put the clasps into the loops, and couple the tent together that may be one. The remnant that remains of the curtains of the tent, the half curtain that remains, shall hang over the back of the tabernacle. And a cubit on one side and a cubit on the other side of what remains of the length of the curtain on the curtains of the tent shall hang over the sides of the tabernacle, on this side and on the other side, to cover it. You shall also make a covering of ram skins dyed red for the tent, and a covering of badger skins above that. And for the tabernacle you shall make the boards of acacia wood standing upright. 10 cubits shall be the length of a board, and a cubit and a half shall be the width of each board. 2 tenons shall be in each board for binding one to another. Thus you shall make for all the boards of the tabernacle. And you shall make the boards for the tabernacle, 20 boards for the south side. You shall make 40 sockets of silver under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under each of the boards for its 2 tenons. And for a second side of the tabernacle, the north side, there shall be 20 boards, and there 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under each of the boards. For the far side of the tabernacle westward, you shall make 6 boards, and you shall also make 2 boards for the 2 back corners of the tabernacle. They shall be coupled together at the bottom, and they shall be coupled together at the top by 1 ring. Thus it shall be for both of them. They shall be for the 2 corners. So there shall be 8 boards with their sockets of silver, 16 sockets, 2 sockets under each of the boards. And you shall make bars of acacia wood, 5 for the boards on one side of the tabernacle, 5 bars for the boards on the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the side of the tabernacle, for the far side westward. The middle bar shall pass through the midst of the boards from end to end. You shall overlay the boards with gold. Make their rings of gold as holders for the bars, and overlay the bars with gold. And you shall raise up the tabernacle according to its pattern which you were shown on the mountain. You shall make a veil woven of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, of fine woven linen. It shall be woven with an artistic design of cherubim. You shall hang it upon the 4 pillars of acacia wood overlaid with gold. Their hooks shall be gold upon 4 sockets of silver. And you shall hang the veil from the clasps. Then you shall bring the ark of the testimony in there, behind the veil. The veil shall be a divider for you between the holy place and the most holy. You shall put the mercy seat upon the ark of the testimony in the most holy. You shall set the table outside the veil, and a lampstand across from the table on the side of the tabernacle towards the south. And you shall put the table on the north side. You shall make a screen for the door of the tabernacle, woven of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen, made by a weaver. And you shall make for the screen 5 pillars of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold. Their hooks shall be gold, and you shall cast 5 sockets of bronze for them.
Thank you. You had the longest read today. I want to point out 2 things here. They are instructed to weave cherubim into the curtains. I want to point out 2 things on that. One, obviously the cherubim was described or seen by Moses because it was given to him. But the craftsmanship to do this is immense. Also, something that I looked into, how many wings do cherubim have? The majority that I've seen, so in Ezekiel, cherubim are described with 4 wings. A lot of different descriptions of them have 4 wings. There's obviously different angels. I think in one section they had like 4 heads. Their wings covered with eyes. I believe those were classified as cherubim. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But the Ark of the Covenant, although the artist's rendition of it is just 2 wings. And I just thought that was interesting. I've heard it described as the cherubim that sit on top of the Ark of the Covenant. 2 of their wings were going horizontally, facing each other, and then the other 2 wings were going up, and it made more of a seat, because that is also referred as the mercy seat. So that is where Yahweh would dwell, and he would come down in between the cherubim, and he would sit there. So just dive into that, do your own research, see what your conclusion is. But I view that in that mental image of it's a seat, and he dwells in there, and he sits on the mercy seat. But does anybody have any comment on these on this section? Everybody's pointing at each other. Yes. Mike is coming.
I just was kind of struck with the testimony was inside. Mm-hmm. So we're the temple now. The testimony is supposed to be inside of us. And just also remembering like that the veil was torn, the curtains. Mm-hmm. So that was actually between the holy and the most holy was torn. I don't know. It was just a thought that I had during that reading. So it's like something with my heart, it just speaks to my heart. So
I have comment on that. I was going to summarize. My understanding, it was, so as far as the curtain being rent down, the curtain being rent was seen outside of the temple. My understanding was that it was the curtain that was separating the courtyard to the holy place. And then the curtain that separated the holy place from the Holy of Holies was actually 2 curtains that overlapped, and you'd walk between them. And it's just so. I don't know how to phrase this. My understanding is it is the outer curtain that was ripped, and we now have access into the holy place. And so what Mike mentioned earlier is that the presence of God dwelling with us will be on the 8th day, after there will be no more sin and death or sin. And that is when we enter into the Holy of Holies, where his presence is all-consuming and we are not destroyed. That is my understanding of that. Yes, Kevin?
Bringing that up, I'd like to add, I know that that's a debatable discussion.
Yes,
and I say that to say, but what I found interesting is, my understanding, and I brought this up, but I haven't had anybody be able to share some insight, was this was the second temple that it was ripped. Uh-huh. His presence was not there. So did they continually go in as if he was there? And if it being ripped, it would have been a non-issue because his presence wasn't there. And was it a way to expose the fact that he wasn't present there? You know what I'm saying?
I don't know, but the answer might be behind you.
So when the first temple was built, obviously we know that the presence came down. And Kevin's right, during the second temple period after it was rebuilt, there was no ark. The ark was hidden by Jeremiah, and so there's no mercy seat. But the priests still continued to serve with with the hope that someday that mercy seat will be returned. And Yeshua honored that. You know, he sent people that were healed for leprosy, go to the priest and declare yourself. So the temple fully operated, but you're right, his presence wasn't there because the mercy seat was not, in there. It had been hidden. But in the millennial kingdom, it will be there. His presence will come down. And Exodus 29 is another reference, if you want to write this down, concerning the reason why this tabernacle was so important. It's Exodus 29, 43 through 46. So another good reference. And I think, was there another question? No. So, but the temple still functioned, and so it will be fully operating again in the millennial period, and I believe the mercy seat will be found and put back in there.
I just wanted to clarify. The exposing meant the recognition that the mercy seat or Messiah was not there. He was actually the one that was crucified. So, you know what I'm saying? So as the exposing wasn't the fraud or that he wasn't there, but that Yeshua was the mercy seat.
All right, we have 4 minutes left. Instead of reading 1 through 19, I wanted to go through the summary of like the spiritual application of all of these things that were commanded. So this is what I've put together through what I was listening to and going through this week. And this is like a summary of this. So the altar is the first object we see. Looking into the courtyard is the altar. The 3 main offerings is a peace offering representing repentance. Whole burnt offering is dedicating your life to Yahweh. And the sin offering is Yeshua's death on the tree. This is where our kingdom and spiritual journey begins. The brazen laver represents our baptism and the daily washing of his word. The tent of meeting, this is very interesting. It said, the tent of meeting represents our bodies. The walls are made of curtains, which represents Yahweh's people. When the curtains are joined together, they make the tabernacle one. When we join together with other believers, we become one body. The menorah, upon entering the tent, it says you will notice the menorah. This is Yahweh's light shown to the world, exposing darkness and convicting people of their sins. The lamp is fueled by oil, representing the Holy Spirit, and the light manifests as our good works in the world. The table of showbread is this is the priest's food. Every Sabbath, more bread is placed on the table. The table shows us that Yahweh is our provider and that we should not worry about what we will eat or drink or what we will be clothed with. But instead, we seek Yahweh's kingdom and his righteousness first. And then the altar of incense this represents our prayers. When we pray with the right motive and in alignment with Yahweh, Yahweh's will, it is a pleasing aroma. That's where I've gotten so far on this summary that I was putting together. I just like to tie in the spiritual applications of each one of these instruments that were in the tent of meeting. But the going into the holy place and the spiritual application of that. A lot of this ties into the coming age, the things that are going to happen. In Revelation 1, it talks about the 7 churches, and there were 7 lampstands. Liked what Tom discussed earlier, is that the lampstands were very large and could be viewed as brittle because they were hollow. And that Yeshua comes and says, hey, your lampstand to the 7 churches, he rebukes quite a few of them. He's like, you are doing this, but I have this against you. it's an interesting when you start tying all of these things in and using these spiritual symbolisms that they represent. Because you might look at this and say, okay, yeah, I can see where you're getting at, but it means this. And somebody might come and say, okay, well, I see that as well, but it also means this. And the answer to those is yes. They have multiple meanings. They have multiple layers of application. They have the physical. They have the spiritual. One of the things that popped up just as I was getting here today was in Revelation, I think it was 5, where the Lamb is seated on stands up. He has got the scroll, and the scroll has 7 seals. Something to look into, something to pray about and ask, what was that scroll? Could it have been so in ancient times when 2 people come together and make a covenant, each party gets a copy of the covenant. And then the original is sealed and hidden away. If there is a dispute upon that covenant, and one party says one thing, another party says another thing, what takes place is they go and get the original document, they break the seal of it, and they read off the original agreement, settling the dispute. Could that be the scroll that the Lamb opens at the end of the age? I can view that and in that context, because I feel like at the end of the age there's going to be that dispute of are we still subject to God's commandments? Are we covered by grace? Do we have to do any of these things anymore? And in that context, there'll be, I think it's what he opens and he uses to judge, is what I'm getting at. It's like, hey, this is the original agreement. This is the context of this. Some food for thought. I'm not standing here saying that this is definite. I found it intriguing. I think we have 2 minutes or so. Does anybody have any comments? Fantastic. All right, well, we'll close with the blessing. So Yahweh, we thank you for blessing us with your Torah to study. Yahweh, we ask that you would give us deeper meaning into all of these things. May we understand more clearly as our life goes on, as we dive into your word, study these things, open our eyes to see. Yahweh, we just praise you for this time that you have set aside for us to come worship you. And we ask that you would bless us today. And we ask this in Yeshua's name. Amen.